Alright folks, what I'm going to talk about in this video is going to be a supplement to the rubric I posted for synthesis paper. It's going to be major paper number 2 for this class, and I'm going to be reading off of it while I talk, so if my eyes are all over the place or something, don't panic. With some of the other content that I've already posted up, synthesis is a process of taking two ideas and creating a new idea from a reconciliation of both of those ideas. It's sort of a compromise between two opposing or different viewpoints. They don't have to be completely opposite of one another, they just have to conflict a bit. So the author needs to engage the audience by establishing several components in order for a synthesis paper to be successful. There needs to be a claim for the paper, so that's going to be your thesis statement. And vocabulary-wise, there is also a thesis, which is a claim that's made based on source number 1's content, as well as an antithesis, which is the opposing or conflicting claim based on source 2, and then synthesis, which is an additional claim based on a reconciliation of the two sources' common truths. So what you would do for the purposes of writing a synthesis paper, for example, is to examine two sources, state your position or state the position you believe each paper takes in distinct sections of the paper, then identify what a reconciliation of those two ideas might represent, and then in the introduction of the paper you would establish what that reconciliation is in brief, so in the form of your thesis statement. Source number 1 for this paper is going to be a reading called Thorstein Staffstruck. It's written in the 8th century in Iceland, and it's about a guy who gets into sort of a legal scrape and has to deal with it. What you're going to do on reading that is identify a cultural, a social, or an intellectual characteristic of that era or that society using any method you wish. You can choose to apply a critical approach to it, or you can just select something that you notice in the reading. What you'll find is they are a very rigid society as far as their customs and their attitudes, and you can pull any that you want from it. Source 2 can be your choice. You need to select a source that depicts contemporary life and apply the same method that you applied to source 1. So it would be a cultural, social, or intellectual characteristic depicted in contemporary life, and you're going to make a claim about that as well. Ideally, you're going to find two opposing characteristics, such as in Thorstein the Staffstruck. For example, you might find that parental relationships with their children are different than ones that are depicted in contemporary society. So you claim how it is in Thorstein's era, then you claim how it is, and kind of develop a discussion that supports your claim. Remember, that's the key to providing a claim. Thesis, antithesis, both of those are claims that require support. The paper is not a compare and contrast paper, though. That's something to keep in mind. You're not pointing out what makes them different and then closing. What you're doing is trying to identify the common truths, like in Thorstein Staffstruck. Parental relationships with children are exceptionally harsh, but in contemporary society, we treat people a little bit more gently. One of the common truths there is that we love our offspring if we are parents, or if we're children, we might resent our parents for a certain reason, but what we're trying to accomplish is reconciling those common truths. Despite the differences between those two societies, we find that parents are always trying to do their best to raise productive, effective members of society, whether it's by harsh upbringing or a more gentle upbringing, for example. So the paper is going to be graded like the other one was. Thesis statement needs the subject, action, method, and intent approach to all 4 major thesis components. Needs to be formatted MLA style, just like the last one. Length of the paper is going to be 4 pages, double spaced, once again, for 25% of the grade. Content, 30% of the grade. Papers need an introduction of at least 1 paragraph, a conclusion of at least a paragraph, a body that addresses source 1, source 2, and a synthesis, all in discrete sections. So it's going to be 5 total sections for the paper: introduction, thesis, antithesis, synthesis, conclusion. Okay. Works cited page, which is separate from the page count, once again, needs to include both sources, so Thorstein and whichever source that you choose, and as always, spelling, punctuation, and grammar. No more than 10% of the grade will be deducted. So this is a bit of a challenging paper to write. I fully expect that people will have questions about it. Feel free to contact me. Make sure you read Thorstein and try and pull any themes out of it that you can. But please contact me if you have any questions, if you need help pulling themes out of that reading, and I will be more than happy to help you as quickly as I can on it. But don't let the paper intimidate you. One suggestion that I have about writing the paper is to consider it 3 separate papers. First, you're going to make a claim about Thorstein. You're going to support that claim with evidence from the reading. Then you're going to make a claim about source number 2, that antithesis, and you're going to support that claim with information from that source. Then you'll reconcile those common truths. So it's like 3 separate papers. Then you make a conclusion. Consider writing the introduction last. Once you see how you've reconciled those common truths, it may be a lot easier to write a specific thesis statement about what you intend to accomplish in the paper. This one is a little easier to work on out of order in that regard, because that thesis statement isn't always apparent. So, like I said, contact me for any help you need on this. Otherwise, I trust you guys fully to get through it, and I'll have everything available for you in multi-sourced argument paper module as soon as you get through this.